Syrian escort. I traded my children for these terrorists. Akmaral Almaganbetova, also known as Al-Bara. This name is familiar to almost everyone who returned from hell, which is happening in the Middle East. Al-Bara was close to the emirs. Those trusted her with a strategic resource, so-called female mahar. For the fighters of the idea, young beautiful women were a hot commodity. The weapons of these women were their bodies, and sex jihad was invented to keep men in the caliphate. For the Arabs, any white woman is beautiful. Maybe they followed their passions, maybe they mocked, trampled on their honor. Muslims rape Muslim women. There was a good connection with Dawood, so I got into the trust. ISIS members gave preference to her. She knew Arabic language, could communicate with Arabs, and had influence on women. Sometimes, even with the use of violence, she somehow threatened them, forced them. If they didn't listen to her, then she attracted the ISIS members, who could harshly suppress dissent in her controlled Jamagat. Living in Aktabe, Akmaral listened to the Ismailov brothers, known under the pseudonyms Abu Hanif and Abu Daud. Responding to their calls, the woman left and thereby brought herself closer to her idols. As an aside, Shamil Ismailov, when he was put on the wanted list in his homeland, went to Egypt with his wife. There he organized a training center, Sharh Sunnah, for the citizens of the CIS. His school was focused on the study of the radical movement Salafism. In 2013, the radical propagandist ended up in Syria, where he joined the Daesh militants. Abu Hanif. I know him as a preacher. I had to deal with his family in Syria. I know him very closely. He called for a settlement on the path of Allah to countries where Islam is practiced and professed. He helped me with accommodation and arrangements. He took responsibility for me, and there I was offered to marry. I married a Chechen guy. It should be noted that Ismailov is not just a terrorist, but an ideologue of terrorism. The reason for which all this was announced is only oil production. Why? Because the whole area was rich in oil wells. Young guys were forced to go to fight in the main places where there was oil. Earlier, there was information about the death of Ismailov, but later he was resurrected and began to appear on the video again. Now he is in the Middle East. His video message was taken in a camp for ex-Daesh militants. In an interview, Ismailov admits that there is no Islam, and it has never been there in the international terrorist organization Daesh, and the terrorist organization was created for only one purpose: illegal extraction and smuggling of oil. There is no caliphate here. Caliphate has never been here. It was all a bluff. I saw everything from the inside. Frankly speaking, meat was necessary. We needed people, young people in particular, who would believe in it. That is, they would come, fight and die for it. They needed ideological soldiers. Akmaral was married in Syria, not more and not less, 7 times. She gave birth to 2 children there. She had a family in Kazakhstan. She left her husband and 3 children behind. The youngest at the time of her departure was 1 year old. Life among the militants did not make the woman want to return to her homeland. Helping the radicals, she did not hesitate to support an ideology that is aimed at the total destruction of families, states, and the world as a whole.
Когда
When a direct evacuation was carried out, everyone was informed that those who were somehow involved in terrorist activities would be held criminally liable. It was clear to everyone from the very beginning. According to our legislation, it is strictly forbidden for Kazakhstan citizens to participate in any illegal armed activity. Upon arrival, Almaganbetova Akmaral was a very constrained, very angry person, and on the first place was necessary the work of a psychologist. Akmaral had a syndrome of unfulfilled woman. Therefore, Akmaral is serving a sentence in a colony. However, the rules that she dictated to women in Syria cannot be applied here in the colony where she is serving term. It has its own leaders, its own rules. 189 women returned to the country from the zones of terrorist activity. Of those, 181 are de-radicalized. That is, they do not have radical views. If taking as a percentage, it is about 95%. This woman who once escaped from happiness to hell will have to think about freedom for a long time. No one visits her in the colony. She was abandoned by her mother, first husband and children, the son and daughter she gave birth to in Syria, and now in a baby house in Aktobe. I was enchanted, recruited. This ideology was born in me. I got infected. It's like a virus. I consider myself guilty towards the society, relatives and children. I'll try my best to prove that I'm not a terrorist. Unfortunately, I made a big mistake by going there.